your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Good morning and welcome to Sports Scene for another week. Here we are, 101 FM as always, taking you through all the big issues in the world of sport, from the local scene all the way to the internationals. I'm your host, Kevin Braysher. Joining me at the panel, AFL Queensland Hall of Famer, Mr. Craig Crowley. Craig, welcome to the show.
Good morning once again, Kevin.
Good morning, mate. Another good, the footy's back. It's all in full swing now, 2 weeks in, and we were talking just before off air, but how good was it to see the Gold Coast sides get up last week in the AFL?
It's terrific, and especially over years and years of sort of not being at the top of their game. It's great to see them really succeed, and it's good to see people behind them.
Dead right. Also joining us at the panel from the QRL, Mr. Ethan James. Ethan, welcome to the show again.
Morning, Kev. Good to be here as always.
Good to have you, mate. And look, it's all hotting up in the footy. The Brisbane Broncos, they turned a corner a bit last night. 22-0 in the second half to run away, 32-12 winners. Good signs there for the Broncos fans, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they did. It was a bit of an upset, really. I mean, that was only their second win of the season without Sam Thaiday as well as captain. So onwards and upwards for them, hopefully.
That's it. And also joining us on the line, founder of SportzScene, Mr. Darren Madigan. And Darren, last night Richmond won their second game of the season, and they're on top of the ladder, mate.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and I'm on top of the world. It doesn't matter what Kim Jong-un is doing up there in North Korea. It doesn't matter that I'm 1,000 miles closer to it than any of you guys are, because Richmond, for the first time in 16 years, have won 2 games in a row to start the season. Plus, there's Dennis Rodman to think of as well. He'll save the day.
That's it, mate. It was a happy morning for you Richmond supporters. Jack Riewoldt kicking 7 goals, I should say. A bit of criticism last week. They nearly let it slip. This week, better, would you say, or more of the same? What do we read on it?
Yeah, part of the game was a bit sloppy, but, there were times when St Kilda started to come back a bit, and I thought, oh, God, here we go again. But, when Jack's at his best when he's just going for it. He's just not worrying too much about his body. He's coming in from the side of packs even and all that sort of stuff. And that's what he was doing last night. And, the previous week he was working to a plan, and he didn't get to kick a goal. But this week he kicked 7, and you can just see the look on his face. Even when he was interviewed after the game, the big grin was a mile wide.
Fair enough. We'll go through all the results now before we kick on with the rest of the show. We've got another big show planned for you. In the NRL Round 5 last night, 2 games Friday night football. Brisbane Broncos 32 over the Gold Coast Titans 12 at Skill Park. The M1 Derby 12-10 at half-time. The Broncos storming home in the second half. Very, very good. Albert Kelly came away with a knee scare. Looks like he's done his medial, which is a big blow for the Gold Coast Titans there, but we'll talk about that after the first break. Also last night, Manly, they went 4-1 now. 4 wins and 1 loss to start the season. A 20-6 win over the Bulldogs. It was 18-0 at half-time. It was all over then. The Bulldogs, on the other hand, they're 1-4 now. Who'd have thought that at the start of the season? Even with the players they have missing, the Bulldogs just not clicking at the moment. AFL Round 2, Richmond 14-15-99 defeats St Kilda 12-10-82, as we say just at the top of the show. That was at the G. Jack Riewoldt kicking 7 goals. In the A-League elimination final, what a cracker this one turned out to be last night. The Perth Glory, looks like they had it in control all the way to the end. They had Shane Smeltz had a penalty with 2 minutes left on the clock. That would have sealed it, would have made it 2-0 Perth Glory. He misses the penalty, hits the crossbar, and then less than a minute later it goes up the other end of the field. The Victory get a penalty. Milligan makes no mistakes. He kicks the goal, it levels, and then Archie Thompson does what he does best and gets the go-ahead goal in extra time. Craig, I know you saw at least a little bit of it last night. A dramatic start. It felt like Perth were home.
Well, that's exactly right. It was a little bit scrubby at times during the second half, but it just you guys in any sort of final you got to take your chances, and for Smeltz to miss a penalty is sort of just something you just don't expect. And good on Melbourne Victory for coming back and not saying die. And once again, Ange Postecoglou he's a magician. Yeah,
he finds way to wins. And Darren, like we were saying before, like if there's one guy who won't take in that penalty for Perth Glory, it is Smeltz, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And, I must admit, if the game had been tonight and we were talking about it now, I think I told you off air, I mean, he would have been the deciding factor for me in my tip. He's just, we know he's a world-class finisher. So, it's just if you've seen what he's come back from that injury a few weeks ago when he was playing for his country, it wasn't very nice, but I thought, gee, okay, he's back. The scar's there on his face, but it's still healed. He's ready to rock and roll. And for him to miss a penalty like that, wow.
Yeah, it didn't turn out well for the Glory last night, but it was a dramatic finish and another exciting instalment for the A-League season, which has given us plenty of excitement so far. In the Super 15 last night, the Blues 29 defeat the Highlanders 18. The Brumbies 28 drew with the Southern Kings 28 down at the ACT. A last-minute try to the Southern Kings, getting them that draw. And then the Sharks 21-17 over the Crusaders. No games in the NBL overnight, but the best-of-3 final series gets underway tomorrow night in New Zealand. It's the Breakers versus the Perth Wildcats. They've been the best two teams all season, so no surprise they are the two that are there right at the death this season. Darren, what's happening in the worlds of tennis and golf? I know that there's Davis Cup this weekend.
Certainly is. Canada, Italy, USA, Serbia, Argentina, France, and Kazakhstan and Czech Republic in the all-important world group. But as far as we're concerned, in Australia, we've had the first couple of rubbers in this tie, and currently it's a 1-1. Bernard Tomic defeated his opponent Dustov, and Istomin got up over Matosevic. And interestingly enough, instead of playing singles, they've gone and put Hewitt into the doubles with Matthew Ebden. So not sure how smart that is, but that's what they've chosen to do. So it's 1-1, and the doubles will be up against those two Uzbekistan opponents, to Dustov and Istomin once again, who'll be pairing up for the double. So it's currently 1-1 coming in today's doubles. So as far as the girls are concerned, we have quarterfinals in the Family Circle Cup in Charleston, South Carolina. Venus Williams has beaten Madison Keys 4-4. Yankovic has beaten Bouchard 2-1. Currently, Serena Williams is on court playing Lucy Safarova, and I can tell you she has just won the first set 6-4, and she's 15-love on serve at the second set. And Carolyn Wozniacki and Vogel will come up a little bit later on court in that as well. As far as the golf is concerned, we have the Valero Texas Open being played at the TPC San Antonio in Texas, and currently Stephen Bowditch is sitting tied for first at 6 under for the tournament after 2 rounds of 69. Currently led with him with Summer Hayes and Charlie Hoffman. Just taking a look at who else we've got there. Nathan Green tied for 13th. Alistair Presnell also there tied for 13th. And Greg Chalmers tied for 32nd. We have a major with the women, and this is one of their majors for the year. The Nabisco Championship played at Rancho Mirage in California. Currently, Inbee Park is leading after she's currently playing her second round. She's halfway through 9 holes at the moment. 3 under for the day. She's 5 under for the tournament leading, and the closest Australian at the moment, Curry Webb, tied for 23rd. And she's finished both her first 2 rounds for the tournament, 72 and 71. So currently sitting there at 1 under. And did I tell you Richmond won last night?
I heard, mate. We have heard, and I'm sure we're going to hear about it again. Thank you very much for that update there, mate. Big show planned for you all today. Lee Hanachek joins us on the line at 9:30 to talk all things motorsport. Then at 9:45 to close out the show, we're going to tackle the thorny issue. It's once again reared its ugly head this week, but social media and sport, how players and how everyone should be responding to it, because it's an issue that's not going to go away. If anything, it's going to expand in times to come. But we'll talk about that at 9:45. The rest of the show, we've got NRL, AFL, A-League, ANZ Championship Netball. We're covering it all here today on SportzScene, so stay with us. When we come back from the break, it's time to tackle the Rugby League world.
Wait,
Oui, monsieur.
Can I have the rest of this in a doggy bag?
But of course, I love doggies. But please make sure you store the food properly so it doesn't go off and cause food poisoning.
Looks fine to me.
Oui, it's fine now, but after 4 hours unrefrigerated, I wouldn't feed it to a dog.
I was thinking of having it tomorrow night.
Well, that's okay, as long as you put it straight in the fridge when you get home. Wait a minute, you don't have a dog, do you?
No, you're not French either.
A message from the Food Safety Information Council.
Come alive in Logan, it's where I want to be.
Join the My Radio 101 FM Supporters Club and become part of the 101 FM family. For just $10 per year, you can become part of the 101 FM family simply by joining the My Radio 101 FM Supporters Club. By being a member of My Radio 101 FM Supporters Club, you will be eligible for 1 entry into the Supporters Club monthly draw, receive a free 101 FM pen, and a My Radio 101 FM bumper sticker, plus invitations to attend 101 FM members and supporters functions, luncheons, discounted offers, ticketed events, memorabilia and products as available, and have pride of being part of the 101 FM family. So why not join today? Contact 101 FM on 3808 8101 for more details.
Wait, huh?
Oui, monsieur.
Can I have the rest of this in a doggy bag?
But of course, I love doggies. But please make sure you store the food properly so it doesn't go off and cause food poisoning.
Looks fine to me.
Oui, it's fine now, but after 4 hours unrefrigerated, I wouldn't feed it to a dog.
I was thinking of having it tomorrow night.
Well, that's okay, as long as you put it straight in the fridge when you get home. Wait a minute, you don't have a dog, do you?
No, you're not French either.
A message from the Food Safety Information Council.
Logan City's 101 FM. FM 1 FM.
Now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 16 minutes past 8 here on your own station. Just a quick notice here. Each Wednesday between 9:30am and 10am, be listening to Legal Talkback with Steve Caron from our sponsor, Caron Lawyers. He'll answer your questions on most things about the law. Just call 101 FM on 3808 8101. That's 3808 8101. That's every Wednesday from 9:30am until 10am. Alright, it's time to jump into the world of rugby league. And before we get into all the games and all the rest of it, there was a rule change this week, as tends to happen quite frequently in rugby league, it seems, with these rule changes. But after a lot of being under a lot of scrutiny from the public over the first few rounds of the competition, the obstruction rule has been amended. Now the video referees have discretion as to whether contact has stopped defenders from defending the try, rather than the black and white interpretation of if contact was made, if the contact was initiated by the attacking team, it would automatically be a penalty. Ethan, what did you make of this? There's been a lot of people say it's great, they're listening to the people. Some people have said it's bad that they've bowed to the wishes of the people this early in the season. What did you make of it?
I think it was an amendment they sort of had to make, really, because in terms of the rule as it was before they made the amendment, there was no room for discretion.
Right.
And I think putting that option in to give the video referee, some form of, essentially a clause for common sense to use their own discretion in terms of, determining whether or not there was an obstruction. But yeah, as we were saying just before off air, it's sort of back to the way it was. So.
Right, exactly. Like, it's just going to be the same problems. There's going to be tries scored where the commentators are going to go off and say, look, there was obstruction, you can't do that, it's a shepherd. It's back to exactly what we had last year. But as much as I didn't like the new interpretation, it doesn't really solve anything with the obstruction rule. No one's going to know. And it seems to be the one rule in rugby league that we can never seem to get right, or we can never seem to agree on it, is the biggest thing with that. Some people have argued that the black and white interpretation that we had should have stayed, but to me, it seemed the basis of that argument was that they're sick of seeing block players and they want block players gone. To me, you can't change a rule because you're sick of seeing a play that a lot of teams are doing. The game will evolve, and it seems someone else will come up with a different play that will become popular and everyone will start doing anyway. You can't just change a rule because you're sick of seeing a particular play.
Exactly. And in terms of the block play, yeah, pretty much. But in terms of the block play, I mean, it's used by all the teams, really. So you'd think the defences are that used to it that coaches would be looking for, other set plays and other means to score points anyway.
Yeah.
So...
Which to me leads to, naturally, once the defence is good enough with it, the play will go away once it's run its course and it's done its thing anyway. So I don't see the need to change the rule for that. But really, it's going to continue to cause controversy. But I like it better than the black and white one we have, because if you have a contact 20 metres away from the play, he's clearly not stopped the try from being scored.
That's the other thing. Obviously, not my chosen sport, but do you get a situation where the offensive side starts running a pattern that actually makes them interfere? Is it the offensive side or defensive side? The defensive side, runs a pattern that actually makes it look like it's an obstruction more so than going the ball, to run off their line. Does that happen quite a bit?
That's the issue that they were having before they made that change. Because defenders were aware that refs were looking for any contact whatsoever at any point in the defensive line. So if there's a bloke running towards you as a decoy or as an option runner or whatever, if you get yourself in the way and there's any sort of contact, then it won't be a try if there is a try scored, somewhere later on down in the play. So the teams were using that as sort of like an extra defence.
So it's like a play when you're under the pump, they'd actually take the chance at running a different line so they get some contact, and that could be deemed obstruction, hence possibly stopping a try happening.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was the right decision to change because defences were doing that. It was a problem, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and pretend that it's going to be roses all from now on. It'll be 2 weeks from now. A try will be given that the commentators think won't be given, and then everyone will have a whinge again. As much I love rugby league, but we got to admit. We love to have a win, just rugby league supporters sometimes.
It won't ever be perfect, though,
it won't be.
No. Like, it's impossible. You've got players running lines, and it's a contact sport. But as long as the refs have enough common sense to know when the defence is making a poor choice as opposed to when the defence is legitimately...
Common sense.
When you watch the game, do you see the commentators? Do they make too much of it to really bring it to the fore?
I think sometimes, absolutely.
And I've noticed it when I've watched the game, they're going, oh, geez, and then and because there's so many cameras at a game now in both sports, no one sort of can avoid the camera, and all of a sudden they pick up a little thing outside the actual ball playing. And as you said before, if it's not really going to inhibit any score try being scored or any player making an impact on the play, it should be just left alone, shouldn't it? Even though it might be an obstruction outside the perimeter.
The reality is the commentators have got a lot of power. They've got a lot of power. The comments they make influence a lot of people. So there's a responsibility on their part too to not carry away sometimes, but it's good for rating, it's good all the rest of it. So
true.
You're not going to lose that side of it. But as you said, Ethan, it's never going to be perfect, but the way they've changed it now is probably better than what we had it in the first part of the season. We'll move on to the rest of the games now. You listen to Sports Scene on 101 FM. It's 21 minutes past 8. Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan with you. The Brisbane Broncos picking up their second win of the season last night at Skill Park, 32-12 over the Titans, 22-0 in the second half. The Broncos' defence was really, really good. That was where this game was won, really, for them. Only 2 tries scored against them. One was an unbelievable solo try from Albert Kelly that you can't defend against. The other was a barge over from dummy half. So aside from that, the Broncos contained the Titans really, really well and really stood up in the second half. I thought Andrew McCulloch, Corey Norman in particular, outstanding in the second half. Corey Parker picked up man of the match honours with his ridiculous work rate as he always has. Look, for the Broncos, have they turned the corner now? Sam Thaiday coming back next week. It seems that second half performance against Melbourne, they got a lot of confidence out of that.
Yeah, they played some really good footy against Melbourne in patches there in that second half, and they had the lead, of course. But yeah, it was a match they really needed to win, because to be, one, from 5 to start the season, they're a better team than that for sure. So it was definitely one they needed to win, and they'd be pretty happy with the way they finished it. In that second half, holding the Titans scoreless there.
Absolutely right. Corey Norman seems to have found his feet in the last couple of weeks at fullback. He's definitely proven it. I know you're a huge fan of him to start the season there, but you got to admit he's come a long way in the last few weeks. He's found his spot.
He has, and they're sort of gelling better as a team in terms of Prince and Wallace in the halves, and then Norman chiming in as a ball player from the back. But he's been playing well since he signed that contract with Parramatta. So
it's funny how that works sometimes, isn't it? And yeah, they really found a good combination down that left side between we'll go to Prince, we'll go to Norman, we'll go Jack Reed, and then Josh Hoffman out there too. They've found a lot of success over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, the Broncos looking much better in the last couple of weeks than they did in the first 2 or 3 rounds of the season. The other game last night, Manly 20 over the Bulldogs 6, 18-0 at halftime. Brett Stewart was good. He had a hand in a couple of those tries. The big question coming out of this one, though, the Bulldogs, they're 1 from 5 now. When are they going to start getting better? Because there's only so long you can make the excuse that we're missing players. I mean, Barber's back, Pritchard's back. There's still a lot of quality guys there. They've still got their halves. They've still got their 9. The spine of the side is there. When are they going to start winning again?
That's a good question. They're lacking a bit of spark and a bit of sort of energy and bounce. It wasn't that was there last year. We're having a chat about it before. I think in terms of their halves, they're probably lacking a bit of creativity there in the playmakers.
Yeah.
Like last year, they played that short passing forward orientated game, but it doesn't seem to be as effective here. And when they do go to their halves, they don't quite have that not necessarily a match winning play, but in terms of the creativity that other sides have, they don't quite have that. So.
Right. I think a lot was made of the loss of Ben Barber, but I think not enough has been made of the loss of Sam Cassiano and James Graham, because you're talking there. Those two guys created a lot of the chaos that the Bulldogs caused last year. Those two guys in particular. So once they get those two back, probably then we'll see them get stronger again. But I agree with you totally with that assessment of the side there with the halves. So they need those guys back, and then maybe then they'll be back. But how many games do they lose before they return? And will they be out of top 4 race by that time? They need to start winning soon, the Bulldogs. That's the bottom line for them. Move on with the rest of the round. This is a game I'm not particularly looking forward to from an on-field perspective, although who knows, this sort of game sometimes surprise you. But Parramatta Eels, who were belted 50-0 last week, coming up against the Sharks, who got beaten by the Dragons last week. No one really expected them to. That's 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Parramatta Stadium. Daylight savings ends Sunday morning, by the way, so we could all be back in sync again, which will be nice
Real
for
time.
us here. But how do we get excited for this game? The Eels, 50-0 last week. For Eels supporters, surely they can't get any worse. Although Ricky Stewart said in the press conference it'll get worse before it gets better. That can't be pretty.
If it gets worse before it gets better, they're in all sorts of trouble. But yeah, I'm trying to get excited about this one. I want to get excited, but I can't. I'm lost.
It's not the most appealing one on paper, but one of the good positive for this one is that they're playing for the Johnny Manor Cup. Of course. Tim Manor's brother, who passed away in the pre-season, he played for both clubs, so that's a great initiative. Ricky Stewart's done a good job of getting some interest into it during the week with the whole, Paul Gallen made a bet to do a nudie run down the street if they beat him. Of course, he's not going to actually do that, but he did a good job in the sense of getting the attention away from his players and onto that and getting some excitement for the game.
Indeed.
He's not a silly one, Ricky Stewart. He knows what he's doing. That was obviously deliberate. But you've got to tip the Sharks in this one, surely. You can't tip a team that lost 50-0 last week.
You can't. I can't either.
No, you can't do it.
We'll leave it at that.
That's simple. Another team who have been very poor the last couple of weeks, I'm going to have to have a go at them, is the Cowboys. They host the Panthers up at 1300 Smiles Stadium, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Cowboys, for a team that is that good on paper, have a roster that deep all over the park. They should not be this inconsistent, and it's been the case for a couple of years now. Last year, they started the season really slowly. It cost them a top 4 spot. In the end, they finished 5th. The potential for that to happen again this year. They've still only won the one game in round 1. The Cowboys, they just have this tendency to turn out these terrible performances where they lose the terrible ball control. They let teams into games. They should have beaten the Warriors last week. They're up 12-0 early and just basically let the Warriors back into the game to give them their first win in a long, long time. The Cowboys, mate, surely their fans deserve better and more consistency, surely.
Yeah, they do, and we've sort of been waiting for it now under Neil Henry for a long time, and there's always talk that that's what they need to do, but they haven't quite got there yet. And if they haven't got there yet, I don't know if they will. So yeah, it's a strange one with the Cowboys, but they definitely have to find that consistency. I don't know what's the mood up in North Queensland, Darren, if you...
Yeah, there's at the moment, they're going through the motions publicly, saying they're not panicking and all that sort of thing. I think Robert Louis comes into the side this week, which means more significantly, I think the Northern Pride lose him, which I don't think they're real happy about.
That's what we'll discuss after the next bit, but yeah, you're right. Louis back on the side.
Exactly, but yeah, look, I think there's, I think if people were to be truthful with you and they're looking at you talking about it, I think they're just more shocked at the moment. They've probably dropped a couple of games they definitely should not have dropped, and as I said a bit earlier before we came on the air, I just have a really bad feeling it's going to cost them drastically at the end of the season unless they have a really, really good middle of the season.
I don't like having a go at Queensland teams, but the Cowboys really need to pick it up with the roster they've got. Robert Louis back in the side it's a big plus for him because he's a quality player. And no disrespect to Ray Thompson and Michael Morgan, but Robert Louis is a better player than both of them. And I think there'll probably be a stronger team with Robert Louis in that side.
Yeah.
He's been very good for the Northern Pride so far this year, as we discussed. But as much as we've had a go at them now, I'm going to tip them. They're back at home against the Panthers. Surely they can't lose this one, Ethan.
They won't. You have to think at some point they're going to sort of fire up. And in terms of what Penrith offer, I have a feeling they may run up a fair score on Penrith. I'm not sure whether that'll leave them in good stead for the weekend after though. See how we go.
Wait and see. And one more game before we go to the break. The Warriors up against the Rabbitohs, 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon at Mount Smart Stadium, Eastern Standard Time. We had a go at the Cowboys. We've got to give credit to the Warriors. They had a couple of men down last week, and they picked up their first win in 268 days. They lost 11 straight. They finished the game with 12 players. Ben Henry got concussed and didn't come back on the field, and they had no more interchange. It was a gutsy win for them in front of their home fans, and the home fans that stuck with them.
Yeah, I always like to see the Warriors do well just from a rugby league perspective, but I'm guessing you can you can tip them now, Kevin, now that they've got that one win under their belt.
That's true, but maybe not against the unbeaten Rabbitohs, Ethan, although it's a potentially a danger game for the Rabbitohs, isn't it?
I reckon if I had to pick an upset this week, I'd sort of go with the Warriors to maybe get over South. So I don't know, when they get on the roll and they play with confidence, they can beat any team in the comp, to be honest. And South might be due for a bit of a letdown after all the 4 straight wins,
and particularly last week when they were so good. So the come down is probably due for the Rabbitohs at some stage. I think you're right. I think this is a danger game for them. I can't tip against the Rabbitohs, but no, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Warriors find a way to win back-to-back games at home. So, yeah, something to watch there. That game would be an interesting one. We'll go to the break now. When we come back, we've got Dragons versus Knights, the Raiders versus the Roosters, and the Storm versus West Tigers to go through. Then we'll go through the Intrust Super Cup. So stay with us.
Do you have a street light that's not functioning correctly outside your property? Perhaps you've noticed a floodlight over a zebra crossing that's not operating. Well, Energex would like you to report it to them by calling 13 12 53 or completing an online form for faulty streetlights on their website at energex.com.au. Remember also that the council has to pay the running cost of all the streetlights, whether they're working or not. So let's get the most for our rateable dollar by reporting the streetlights not functioning to Energex on 13 12 53 or on their website energex.com.au.
Four-wheel driving on Fraser Island can take sand driving seriously. Don't let your trip turn to tragedy. Slow down, stick to the speed limit. In good conditions, 80 kilometres an hour on the beach and 30 on inland tracks. Slower is safer. Seatbelts save lives. Wear them, it's the law. Police patrol the beach anytime. Make your visit to Fraser fun, not fatal.
If you want to know what's happening on the roads, make sure you tune into 101 FM Monday to Friday during breakfast and drive for the latest traffic updates, presented by your station sponsor, Yellow Cabs.
Logan City's 101 FM. FM. 1 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan taking you through all the big issues in the world of sport from the last week or so. We're continuing now with the NRL Round 5. The Dragons up against the Knights, Win Jubilee Stadium, Win Jubilee Oval I should say, 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon. The Dragons got the monkey off their back last week with a good win over the Sharks. Can they back it up against the Knights, who have been very, very impressive so far this year?
Oh, they can probably back it up with a good performance, but I don't know if they'll be able to topple the Knights. Newcastle are pretty consistent at the moment. They're playing some really good, tough footy. I don't think, even though the Dragons managed to actually score a few tries against Cronulla, which is pretty remarkable.
Surprised a lot of people,
yeah. They got over the line.
They did.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't think they have enough in them to really trouble Newcastle. I think Newcastle should beat them fairly easily.
Yeah, I agree. How good do you think Newcastle are going to go this year? Do you think they're a dark horse for the top 4 sort of side? I think they've got a lot of potential in that team if they can stay consistent.
If they can maintain a good record at home, win the majority of their games there, and then even sneak half away on the road. I mean, that's all you really. That's enough to get in the top 4 essentially. So, I like their forward pack. I think if they stick with Gidley, Badiris in that hooker dummy half combination, I think that's the way to go. And yeah, they've got plenty of strike on the outside backs as well. So I reckon they could be. I
think they're building nicely. I think they could upset a lot of good teams towards the back end of the year. They get a boost this week with Danny Badiris not being outed for a shoulder charge that it injured Blake Ferguson last week.
Broke his cheek.
Broke his cheekbone. Yeah. What did you make of it? Look, the thing with the shoulder charge for me so far this year that's frustrated me is, not that it's banned, which has annoyed a lot of people. It's that sometimes they penalise it, sometimes they don't, and it's back to this old thing in rugby league that we just want consistency with it. Like, to me, penalise all of them or don't penalise them. Like, what's the go with it? How does Badiris first not get a penalty on the field and then it doesn't get cited afterwards? How does it work?
I have absolutely no idea, really, to be honest. And I mean, it's not as if it was something that happened in back play as play was still going on. I mean, he hit Ferguson and Ferguson stayed down with a broken cheekbone. So there was plenty of time to review the incident, even, on the field. And it was quite obvious. It probably wasn't an intentional, Sonny Bill style shoulder charge from Badiris. But I mean, he still tucked his arm in, made contact with the head as a shoulder charge, as opposed to wrapping around with your arms sort of tackle. So I don't know how they missed it, and I don't know how they continue to penalise some and miss others.
This one, it was similar to the Fioso one the week before in that the shoulder charge, and then there was a head clash involved with it as well. But to me, the whole point of bringing in the shoulder charge ban was to protect the head of the player. Right, we've seen 2 incidents now where they could have gone hard and stamped it out, and they haven't. So it's hard to work out as a rugby league fan exactly what they're trying to achieve with the shoulder charge ban. It's still a lot of questions to be answered with that one, but I suppose we're going to have to live with it for the rest of the year as it has maybe teething problems with the rest of it. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with the shoulder charge, whether it's in or it's out. It's confusing. It's hard to follow. Another game this weekend: the Raiders up against the Roosters, 6:30 p.m. at Canberra Stadium. How good were the Raiders of the Roosters last week? 50-0 over Parramatta. Again, one thing I will say before we get into the talk of it: Sonny Bill will be available for the Test match coming up in a couple of weeks' time. See the first guy picked for New Zealand. I think he's been outstanding so far.
Oh, his form's been sensational, and it's sort of funny though because there was so much hype around him. Before he played the first match of the season, but he sort of dropped off the radar a little bit.
Now that he's actually started playing well, people aren't talking about him. It's strange.
He's a different sort of player to the player he was when he was in league. He's not as flashy. I don't think he can be as flashy now, but in terms of the work, I think we spoke about it last week as well, but in terms of the work and effort that he's putting in, like he's far and above the player that he was when he was in league before, I think. So
I agree totally. Like his work rate is outstanding. He's playing 80 minutes. He looks fit he's right up high on the tackle counts. He's still got the offload and the creative play, but it's not as flashy as you say. To me, he seems to be a better all-round player now than he was 5 years ago.
And he threw that cutout pass as well for a try in the corner against Parramatta the other week. So.
Probably at the start of the year there was a lot of speculation, I suppose, and what's he going to do? What's he going to bring to the table? Yeah. Now he's here, and now he just blends in and playing his game. Like I think that'll happen in all pre-season situations, whether it be AFL or NRL or any other quota sport. There was always that. Wow, what's he going to do? What's he going to bring to the table? Well, he's brought it to the table. Okay, let's see what's happening during the course of the game now for other players as well. And the teams, you'll notice the teams are more involved. It's more about the team than the individual. But pre-season's all about that individual.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about the Roosters as a team. They're really starting to gel. They got. I really like the look of their forward pack across. There's a lot of good young players, but there's a good mix of experienced players as well. And they're exciting backline. I think they're a similar sort of situation as Newcastle. If they can stay consistent, I think they could trouble some top sides. I think they'll be, another one of those dark horse sort of teams.
And I think they're just going to get better and better too. I mean, they have brought in a fair few new players. They had a fair few changes to their roster in the halves, and with Michael Jennings coming in, Sonny Bill, of course, as well. So I think they'll only improve as a side. And if they can sort of iron out some of those, brain explosions and areas of ill discipline that sort of cruelled them in the past, I reckon they're really strong team.
Dead right. And the final match of the round, a team we all know is really, really strong, the Melbourne Storm, hosting the West Tigers on Monday night, 7 p.m. down at Amy Park. Braithen Nasta's been named to play halfback for the West Tigers, which is interesting, but it's hard to see the Tigers getting close to the Storm, who have just been on a rampage so far this year.
Yeah, they've just been too good for everyone so far, really. But yeah, in terms of the Tigers, I mean, they'll obviously go into the match with nothing to lose, and they'll try and throw the ball around and put a cat amongst the pigeons in that regard. But it could go one of two ways for them. I mean, it could click, or it could just turn to absolute tripe. I mean, but we'll wait and see how that one goes. But yeah, it's hard to look past Melbourne.
Yeah, very hard to look past the Storm, especially down there in Melbourne. Quick look at the ladder now to wrap up the NRL. The Manly Seagulls on top after that win last night. Melbourne in second, they are still unbeaten, as are the Rabbitohs, who are in third. Newcastle in fourth, the Roosters in fifth, the Titans 6, Broncos 7, Cronulla 8. That's your top 8. Then we got the Tigers in 9, Panthers 10, Bulldogs, Dragons, Eels, Cowboys, Warriors, Raiders. Just back on the Cowboys for a second. They're below the Eels, and, we've been giving it to the Eels. How about that been? That's just an indication. A team like the Cowboys, after 4 rounds going into 5, should not be that low on the ladder. Get it together, Cowboys. We move on now to the Intrust Super Cup. We'll start with the TV game, and South Logan Magpies will be on TV, Channel 9, 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon. They're hosting the Sunshine Coast Sea Eagles at Davies Park, and both of these sides, they finished down the bottom last season. Both these sides have showed plenty of improvement so far this year. Sunny Coast got another win last week against North, a 1-point win over them there. How do you see this one going down, Ethan?
Yeah, they're both sort of punching above their weight to start the season. Of course, neither are linked with NRL clubs, and they're the only two sides in the comp that don't have that affiliation. So, in terms of that, they're missing probably one or two professional players, full-time professional players that the other sides have in their lineup. But I mean, the Sunny Coast have been terrific, and South Logan, they've definitely punched above their weight. So it'll be a close one, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice for the TV game of the round. I think both of them, will rise to the occasion and really try and get one up on each other. It'll be a good game of football. I'll tip the South Logan at home. They won their last game at home from memory a couple of weeks back, so I like them in that one. It should be a good game of football. That's Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. on Channel 9. Then we move on now to the rest of the round. Playing tonight up at Virgin Australia Stadium in Mackay. The Mackay Cutters up against the East Tigers. Ethan, last week East suffered their first loss to Ipswich. A pretty disappointing performance, I think it's fair to say. Can they bounce back?
I think they can. They are, of course, in terms of personnel, they're missing a few, and there have been a few personnel changes heading into this match against Mackay, so that might hurt them a little bit. But of course, they travelled up to Mackay last year and won fairly convincingly. But yeah, they were disappointing last week, and I think the coaching staff will have them back on track against Mackay.
That's it. Central Queensland Capras, mate, they host the Redcliffe Dolphins 6 p.m. tonight at Brown Park. The Capras showed last week that they're a dangerous team at home, and they're going to be tough to beat at home, but it's tough to go past Dolphins, isn't it?
Yeah, they've just got too much class, too much strike power across the paddock. Capras will try hard. I think they'll start well, but I can't see them keeping it with the Dolphins for the full 80 there.
Fair enough. Tweed Seagulls up against the Northern Pride tonight at Billy Slater Oval at Innisfail at 7 p.m. Darren, I know there's a fair bit of hype around this game up there.
Yeah, pretty huge. I mean, they've got the backing of the council and one of the major companies in the area, obviously Australian Bananas and that. So, look, they're talking at the moment of a crowd of around about 5,000 up there, which for anywhere in the Queensland Cup competition we know is a huge crowd. I mean, they'd be lucky to get that at a grand final. So it would be massive tonight. Even without Louis and that, they're looking really, really good against the Seagulls. I think they'll get up comfortably.
And the Seagulls last week, they were held to nil for the first time in their 228 game history. I found that very interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, last week the Tweed Seagulls went down to nil. The Pride will be without Robert Louis, Ethan. Robert Louis has really been, the conductor of everything so far this year for the Pride. Can they win without him?
I think they can. They've got enough talent and skill there in the halves to cope without Louis. They're a very professional side, and I think they'll get the 2 points.
Fair enough. Winner Manly Seagulls up against the Ipswich Jets Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. at Coolgardie Oval. Last time these two teams met at Coolgardie have been draws. Can we get 3 in a row with the draws there, or will we get a result?
I think they could. Go for a hat-trick of draws there. I think that's a definite possibility. I reckon this will be the match of the round, really. Wynnum, after that first round loss against Redcliffe, have really sort of gotten back into form. At Ipswich are coming off that really strong win against East. So it'll be a tough match. Both teams with very good forward packs. A few Broncos fringe players in the Wynnum side. So I reckon that'll be a really tight one and maybe another draw.
That's it. The final match of the round, North Devils at home to the Burleigh Bears, 3 p.m. Bishop Park, Sunday afternoon. The Bears started the season with 3 straight losses for the first time ever. Are they going to bounce back this week? It's a tough road trip up there to North, who lost their last game at home. They don't lose 2 games at home too often.
No, they don't, but Burleigh must be desperate, surely. I mean, they're a much better side than Nunn and 4 to start the season. I know you've been following them probably more closely than me, Kev. How are they looking? Because I saw one trial, and they looked really impressive, but they haven't.
The thing with the Bears is that they've been very patchy, and this has been what it's all about with them. I spoke to them during the week, did a preview up for them, and it's all about playing for the full 80 minutes and not switching off with 5 to 10 minutes to go or switching off for periods throughout the game, because they've shown at times that they can play good football. They led 18-4 last week. They led the Northern Pride late in the game the week before that, and they led the Seagulls the Seagulls the week before that in the round 1. So the Bears know they can play football. Their problem is that they have to be able to play for 80 minutes. And talking to the vice-captain during the week, they say when they get in front, they tend to start defending points rather than continue with their game plan. They need to get that out of their system and play to their full game plan for the full 80 minutes. If they can do that, I think they'll win this game.
Yeah, Kev, shout out to Blake Morrison. He comes off the bench this week, played his 100th senior game a couple of weeks ago, and former captain of the Bycroft Cup side and also the Fogs A-grade side for many years when it was in the competition in Brisbane there. And he's a top bloke, a really good player, and also a good leader too. He was touted as a future leader of the Queensland Cup side for a number of years there at Burleigh. So he's making a little bit of a comeback this year, I think, and it's good to see him back playing footy again and playing well.
That's it. And there's also two of my favourite Bycroft Cup players coming off the bench for the Bears, Jamie Judge, Brendan Hoare, absolute workhorses for their respective clubs over the last couple of years. And yeah, it's good to see them going strong in the Intrust Super Cup. We look now just quickly on the Bycroft Cup this weekend. Southport Tigers up against Tugun Seahawks tonight at Owen Park, 5 p.m. Martin Lang is playing at the moment for the Tugun Seahawks. He's 37-year-old Martin Lang. I didn't see their first round game, but all reports, I was told he plays exactly the same. Closes his eyes, runs dead straight.
That was my next question. Has he changed his style? Is there a sidestep or a pass, or is he?
He's the type of guy. I don't know how his body has held up over the years. He plays such a tough brand of football, but yeah, he's been a great help for a very young Tugun Heat Seahawks side. That'll be an interesting game of football. Burleigh Bears on Sunday afternoon up against Bulambla Jets. Probably the match of the round. Down at Bulambla will be a good game of football. Hard to tip against the Bears. They're very, very strong. And then Coogin Currumbin and then Runaway Bay versus Tweed also on Sunday afternoon. That wraps up all the rugby league talk for this week. We've got to take a break. When we come back, it's time to talk some A-League. The finals are underway.
Sometimes I know he sings.
What happens when a young rock and roller from the wrong side of the tracks falls in love with a rich man's daughter?
He's wonderful. He loves me and I love him.
I'm not rubbish, Mr. Burns.
When poverty walks in the door, love flies out the window.
Come and ride the rock and roll roller coaster that is the world premiere run of new British musical Billy Bucket at the Crete Street Theatre, Beenleigh, from April 26th to May 11. Get your tickets online from BeenleighTheatreGroup.com or call 3287 1377. Be there or be square.
Life. Life is for living. So live it. Life. Life is for giving. So give it. Giving blood is cool. Needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
Hi, I'm Nikki Buckley with a tip on how you can support Coast Care. Now, when boating, use biodegradable oil in your two-stroke engine whenever possible and always anchor securely in a sandy space. The reefs and seagrass beds can be damaged when anchors are allowed to shift. For more coastline information, call 1800 603 772.
Logan City's 101 FM. 1FM.
And now it's back to Saturday SportzScene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to SportzScene here on 101 FM. It's 13 minutes to 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan with you. It's time now to talk a bit of A-League and a cracker of an elimination final last night at Etihad Stadium. Melbourne victory eventually prevailing 2-1 over the Perth Glory. Dramatic finish, as we say. The Perth Glory, they got a goal early in the first half. They led for the whole contest. In the 88th minute, they got a penalty to Shane Smeltz. He missed the penalty, hit the crossbar. Less than a minute later, it goes up the other end of the field. The Victory get a penalty, questionable one at times too. Like some argue that there was a handball in the lead up to it. But Milligan made no mistakes. He equalised. Then Archie Thompson did what Archie Thompson does. He got the match-winning goal in extra time. Tough defeat there for the Glory to cope with, but gee, what a great spectacle it was, that game.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's never been more evident, has it, that you've just got to take your opportunity in any sort of game, let alone finals. And we can't hang Smeltz for missing a penalty. Obviously, the game is, it's documented, it's there, and it's we'd like to think penalties are laid down as there, but it happens. It happens in the best football. It's a pressure situation. He knows he's going to ice the game if he puts it through. At the end of the day, he doesn't. But they, were the Perth Glory thinking, oh well, before that, it's all over. They're starting to get excited about it and totally forgot about the defensive side, and hence they've gone up the other end of the ground. Like, they've still got to switch on to, okay, it's a missed goal. Let's get back and defend like they did for the majority of the game, and they did extremely well. Like, they just got a little, I wouldn't say complacent, but they just lost lost a bit of it.
You see it a lot in rugby league where a team will be pressing the opposition line for repeated sets, and they don't get that try that they're looking for, and then the frustration sets in. How often do you see the very next set of 6, they catch them off guard and they run up the other end of the field and score? It was a very similar situation. That maybe they were deflated after the missing penalty. They thought, yep, this is it, the penalty, we've got this game, it goes down. Before they have a chance to recover from that mentally, all of a sudden there's a penalty in their own box.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is, I mean, once the inevitable post-mortems start, and no doubt they already have, I mean, as a coach, you'd sit there and look at, take a look at the scoreline there of 2-1 and say 90-minute and 94-minute goal. You know, defence, where were they? They fall asleep at the end of the match. You know, that's, you know...
comes down to, you've got to defend until the 90th minute and go past
Exactly. I mean, letting 2 goals in at 90 and 94, wow. I mean, that's all... I mean, there's not much else you can say to it, really, is there? Wow. I mean, you just don't let it happen.
I thought Ange Postecoglou's response after the match was pretty telling in that regard, too, in that no matter what those situations are, it's not a luck thing. You got to take your chances. The Victory took their chances, and the Glory didn't close out the game the way it was. And you know, he's spot on, isn't he?
That's well, absolutely. You know, would that be an indicator, Darren, of the sort of year the Glories had? They had the coach dismissed during the course of the year. I find it really hard how clubs can do that to any sort of team or any sort of coach, when really at the end of the day you can have your processes in place, but it really does come down to the players, and that was evident last night. They had the opportunity to win the game, not the coach, no one else involved, and they just didn't take it. So I think that's pretty much a fairly good indicator of how their season was. It was a bit unsettled, a bit unsure, not probably getting right behind your coach during the course of the year. Hence, you know, when it push come to shove and the game was there to be won, they couldn't win it.
Yeah, and I think you've got to take a look at what's going to happen down the track. And I mean, if you take a look at what happens for next year, I mean, if you want to look at another side that was probably similar in what you've just outlined to be Sydney FC, and I mean, they changed coaches mid-year, all that sort of stuff. But the way I see
on that.
Sorry?
Also on that, Darren, you had Ange Postecoglou at the start of the season. What do you have, 4-0?
I think 5-0 to the Raw in the
yes, and we were all asking questions about what happens next.
They didn't. They stuck to what they believed in, and
they did.
Look where they are now.
They did.
For his 3rd straight A-League Grand Final, if the Victory can find a way through to it. And it was some tough deja vu in a lot of ways for Perth in the way this one ended. Remember last year in the Grand Final against Brisbane Raw, Ange again was the coach in that one. It was the same referee. It was a late penalty that was controversial that cost him in the end. Sometimes sport can be really cruel, can't it, Darren?
Yeah, but it also goes to show too that, you know, until that final whistle is blown, you've got to be on the ball right the way through, and you've got to have your wits about you. I mean, as I keep going back to the scoreline, to me it just says so much. You know, you've got to be on the ball right to the end, and especially in a game like soccer. You know, a game like soccer, there's so little scoring involved. You know, your whole season's finished with 1 goal. It can be that, just like that. So, you know, you've got to be on the ball, and letting goals in at 90 minutes and 94, I keep harping on it, just isn't good enough. Perth Glory, they've got to take stock now and say, okay, how are we looking for next year? Can we hold on to Schmeltz? Can we hold on to some of these other players and recruit well for the next year? Because I've got a feeling that the other team that I referred to in Sydney FC, now that Farina has signed a multi-year deal, they've got Del Piero signed up, I really like them next year to do quite well.
Fair call. I think Perth, if they're going to learn the lesson, they've learned it the toughest way possible. But they did well to even make the finals this year, considering where they were a number of weeks ago.
Agreed.
So I don't think it's all bad news for the Glory in the way they finished this season.
Yep.
The other elimination final being played this week, I should say before we move on, the Victory will move on to play the Central Coast Mariners next weekend for a spot in the grand final. That'll be 2 versus 3. The next game for this weekend, Adelaide United up against the Brisbane Raw. That's Sunday night, 5 p.m. at Hindmarsh Stadium. Just a few quick stats to go through before we talk about the game itself. Last time these two teams met, they've met twice this year down in Adelaide. Both times the Raw won 1-0 down in Adelaide. In fact, Adelaide have only beaten Brisbane once in their last 5 encounters. Adelaide only 3 wins from 13 games in 2013, including 1 of their last 7. Now, all the momentum points towards the Brisbane Roar, but
it does.
Brisbane Roar this year have been unable to win 3 games straight all season. They've won their last 2. They need to win a 3rd straight. It's been the story of their year. Which one of these stats are going to play out in the end? Is it the momentum of the Roar, or will they once again fall to that inconsistency that's plagued them all year?
I've been umming and ahhing all night about this, and I've gone back and forth. I've mostly been on the side of Adelaide United, especially playing at Hindmarsh. But when I take a look at this little stat here, win, win, loss, draw, win, for Brisbane Roar coming into this with momentum, up against Adelaide United, draw, win, loss, plus, and let's not forget they've had a Champions League campaign to think of as well. I think we're probably looking at Brisbane Roar going a week further into the finals than I expected them to.
I tend to agree with you, mate. I think the Roar have got a lot of momentum behind them at the moment, and they've got this mental edge over a lot of these sides. Probably the only side they don't have against is the Western Sydney Wanderers. That they've beaten all these sides in big games before, and as we see, as the numbers say, the Roar have had the wood on Adelaide in recent times.
And probably the biggest thing, Darren, which you can have as many stats as you like, finals experience says a lot. It's a different game. I don't know their roster to what it was last year or the year before, but there would be a lot of players, I'd say, no doubt, that who figured in them 2 premierships. People in crisis with cool heads win games. And that's what you probably have. Like, I understand they've got a different coach, and that's fine, but the players know how to adapt. And if the players aren't ready to go by this stage of the year, and if they're relying on their coaches to win in the game or strategically set them up for the win, they're shooting down the wrong barrel.
Yeah, the only thing I'm also worried...
Darren, and I think you'll find that Brisbane will come through on this.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is some of the pictures I was watching last night of training. I just hope everybody's fit and ready to go, because we had 2 players down with ankle injuries, and it looks like Mulvey was working them pretty hard. So I just hope that everybody's fit and raring to go, because those ankle injuries were a bit of a worry and they didn't look good.
I think what you were saying, Craig, I agree 100%. Experienced players, cool heads in big games, win games, which is why I'm tipping the Roar in this one, and why I'm not writing them off against Western Sydney Wanderers last week. As good as Wanderers have been all year, they've got over every hurdle that's been in front of them all year. This is another one again against the 2-time defending premiers. Well, assuming they get through this round, of course, I'm speaking. But I wouldn't write the Roar off. I think that'll be their big test next week if they can get through to that one. But I'm tipping them in this one against Adelaide, and they'll go and meet the Wanderers, the premiers. But the premiers play winners in the next round of the finals. But that game will be 5 p.m. Sunday evening at Hindmarsh Stadium down in Adelaide. Darren, there's some local leagues and some European leagues we want to go through quickly.
Yep, okay, let's take a quick look at the local league. Brisbane Premier League at the moment. We're into round 5 games this week. We're looking at tonight, Capella Bar playing Brisbane Force, Rochdale Rovers at home to Peninsula Power at Underwood Park, Ipswich Knights are at home to Albany Creek, Eastern Suburbs at home to the Logan Lightning at Heath Park, and tomorrow we have Lions FC playing North Star. Current ladder: Lions, Albany Creek, Wolves, Peninsula Power, Eastern Suburbs, Ipswich Knights, Rochdale Rovers, Capella Bar, Logan Lightning, Brisbane Force, North Star and UQFC. As far as Europe is concerned, we're into the quarterfinals of both the Champions League and the Europa League as well. Paris Saint-Germain 2-2 draw against Barcelona. Pretty good result, one would think, there at the Parc des Princes in Paris. Bayern Munich, who are just looking so good, 2-0 up against Juventus at home there at Allianz Arena. That's after a 9-2 defeat of Hamburg a few days earlier in the Bundesliga. Malaga and Borussia Dortmund had a 0-0 draw. Real Madrid 3-0 up over Galatasaray, and those teams will come up against each other in the second leg next week. Europa League, Chelsea 3-1 over Rubin Kazan. Tottenham Hotspur 2-2 with Basel from Switzerland. Fenerbahce from Turkey 2-0 up over Lazio, and Benfica 3-1 up against Newcastle United. And once again, next week those teams will come up against each other again in the second leg of those matches.
That's it, mate. And just before we move away from that, we've got about a minute till the next the news break coming up at the top of the hour. But during the week, it was the opposition, a bit of mind games really. They hailed Barcelona as greatest team ever. The greatest team ever.
Yeah.
What do you make of Barcelona at the moment? They've been so good for so long, and this year, as you say, probably not as dominant as we've seen in the past.
Look, I agree with the statement. They probably are the best team ever. I mean, they've been so dominant for so long with a core group that, unlike Real Madrid, doesn't rely on superstars everywhere. They have Messi, but they keep a core of really good players, and they've won pretty much everything there is to win as a club. So over the last a number of years now. So I agree with the statement. They probably are the best team we've seen. But this year they've lost their way a bit. They've gone down to Real a few times in the La Liga, and they've lost their aura and their gloss a bit. That's why I think people are edging towards Bayern Munich a bit to win the tournament.
Look, we've got to go to the news break now here on SportzScene, but stay with us in the second hour. Lee Hanneschek's coming up at 9:30. We're going to have our social media in sport discussion at 9:45, and straight after the news break, it's time to talk through all the second round of the AFL. So stay with us on SportzScene.
Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's now 5 minutes past 9, taking you into the second hour of the show. I'm Kevin Braysher. Joining me at the panel as always today, AFL Queensland Hall of Famer Craig Crowley, the QRL's Ethan James, and Sports Scene founder Darren Madigan. It's time now, guys, to jump feet first into the AFL second round. It all started last night. The Richmond Tigers getting a 14-15-99 to... let me start that again. The Richmond Tigers getting up over St Kilda, 14-15-99 to 12-10-82.
Kevin,
Jack Reedwald, the star, with 7 goals.
Sorry, mate, have we lost Darren there? I think we might have lost him.
Didn't get an immediate reaction.
No, I think...
No,
I'm sorry, there's some interference there.
A fighting fury, we're from Tigerland. Ah, yes, it was a happy day. Would you believe I had myself on mute? But anyway, I've got myself fixed now. I'm here.
Don't wind him up.
We're back. So, all right, so seriously, on the game now, guys, how do we see it, Craig? What were your view on the performance of the Tigers?
Well, look, they were good. Now, obviously, the first 2 games were good. I said during the course of our pre-season roundup, they have actually got some recruited pretty well. They had the ability to probably go a step further, but we all penciled them in for 9th, as we normally do. But look, the thing about him, which has been significant, the pressure now is off Jack Riewoldt. Even though he kicked 7 last night, there's other avenues to goal, which Richmond haven't had for a long time. Through the midfield, they're strong. Their defence probably needs a little bit more, but, that's to come. But it's great to see Luke McGuan going forward. He's played most of his football in defence. He's gone forward and he's become another option. You got Vickery, who last week was significant. It just takes the onus off Riewoldt, who obviously got the result this week in the way of kicking his goals, and that's really important. They're getting enough ball through the midfield. Like Cochin's, is on fire. Yeah. Tuck, he just keeps going and going. They're getting enough ball forward, so. And when you go into the forward line, there's not just one bloke, so a player can actually, can sag off and maybe have another one up in the contest, so it makes it hard for Riewoldt. He's playing a man one-on-one, and more often than not can beat him. And his conversion rate was good. He only had 9 touches last night, and he's ended up kicking 7-2. 3 marks. They're not the Jack Riewoldt stats that we're used to. Like, he normally contributes pretty much points for goals and also takes a lot of marks. So, he's made the most of his opportunity, and it is really good. Even little Jakey King, being a small forward option and nearly taking the mark of the century last night. He jumped all over this bloke. But at the end of the day, they have got a lot more forward power, which is pretty significant. I think the Saints struggle down back. Fisher's not on the top of his game. You had Dempster had a broken hand. Mm-hmm. So they struggled a bit down there. And, look, they might be found out. And, and for the St Kilda's, in a bit of defence for St Kilda, having only a 6-day break and also playing up in the heat in Queensland, it was very taxing on their body. How much that played them, I don't know. But Richmond got them at a good time and they had a great win. Where are St Kilda at the moment? 2 losses to start the season, a loss against the Suns last week. Where are they? Well, at the end of the day, once again, I think we spoke about it earlier in the year that their list is ageing. They really haven't brought through enough players to start regenerating a new group of midfielders. Kaczynski being out, what's going on there? Nick Rewalt, that he was just a one-man band in the forward line, even though they had a couple of contributors. At the end of the day, they didn't look up to the St Kilda that we used to have in the team that played in the grand final a couple of years back. They looked a bit second-rate by a side that was keen to win.
Fair enough, Darren. I'll give you the last word on this game before we move on.
Yeah, look, Rewalt missed a dolly early in the match. He could have had 8 goals, actually. But, you take a look at St Kilda's list, just going through it at the moment, and you're right. I mean, we could be having this conversation 7 or 8 years ago, except with the difference being Richmond actually winning. But if you take a look at St Kilda's list, there are names in there. You just go through Milne, Rewalt, Montagna, Del Santo, Hayes. I mean, like I said, we could be having this conversation 7 or 8 years ago. So they really need to do something along that run. At the moment, everybody's recognising that Richmond's recruiting has been good, and they've got a good young side coming through. And as some of these younger players start to make the big step up, anything is possible down at Tigerland. It really is.
That's it, mate. Moving on to the rest of the round now. This afternoon, 12:45 p.m. at the SCG, Eastern Standard Time. The Sydney Swans up against the Gold Coast Suns. The Suns very good in their first one. I mean, how good was Gary Ablett? How good was he?
He was second to none. I shouldn't probably say it, but I'm a bit of a critic when the games go into a one-sided event, obviously against the Suns. He looks for a bit of self-preservation, I think, at times, and gets cheap kicks around the contest, even though you've got to work to get there, and he does get a multiple possession. But he actually won that game. He actually the ball was there to be won. He didn't go into the cheap seats. He didn't look for an easy ball to get. He actually led from the front. And got every ball they had to. When everyone else the ball was slipping out of their hands, he grabbed it first time. His execution was faultless.
Some of those goals were magic.
I'll tell you what, if you could give 6 Brownlow votes, I think he's got them.
Yeah.
Because he was just, it's the best game I've ever seen an individual player play. He was just head and shoulders above him. And I can see this happening quite a bit with the Suns. So they were tremendous.
Darren, you and Craig both tipped him to take out the Brownlow. That's a positive start to the season for him.
Look, I mean, I've been saying this for a number of years now. I honestly believe in my heart that his father was mercurial, but honestly, I think he's a better all-round footballer than his father was. And, I've often said that the most influential footballer I've seen in my lifetime was Wayne Carey, as opposed to Gary Ablett Sr. I tell you what, this guy is he just keeps getting better, if that's possible. And I think the guys around him at Geelong were taking votes off him because he probably would have had 3 Brownlows by now. I really do believe that.
Yeah, probably. Well, he's going to need to be at his very best again this week as they take on the defending premiers at the SCG. As good as it was to see the Suns get a first-up win last week, Craig, can they beat the Swans at the G?
Look, you'd probably say not, but I think the biggest question, and not to sit on the fence with this, all we need to see on a weekly basis is with the Suns, is if they don't win, they have given themselves every chance to win. Yeah. And I think if they can stay competitive, Gary Ablett will go out and do his utmost. He'll know they'll pick up a tag. He'll have that situation every game he plays. What we do need to see, and it was great to see, some local product do well. Rory Thompson, for one, playing on Nick Rewalt last week. He's got to do that again. He's got to do that on a regular basis. We need up-and-coming stars like a Harley Bennell to come up and contribute on a regular basis. Their body sizes can match it with the stronger size now, as you can see that, and something we also spoke about it's time for them to lift. Look, the funny thing about Sydney, and the reason they probably won the grand final, because they're always at it, they're strong, they keep going, but they're not a big scoring side as a rule. They haven't really got a forward line that can kick a real big score. So that does leave the gate open a little bit for the Suns if they can sort of get enough points on the board and get themselves into the game. Realistically, you've got to say they can't win the game, but like we said, we just need them to be competitive and have a good showing for the game.
That's it. Look, probably only time for one more game before we go to the next break, but we've got the Western Bulldogs up against the Freo Dockers, 1:10 p.m. standard time down at Etihad Stadium. How do you see this one going down, Craig?
Well, the Bullies totally confused me last week. I didn't give them much chance. They're in a rebuilding situation, and they've beaten Brisbane, who I picked to be in the 8. So I think, look,
didn't just beat them; they really gave it.
They did, and it was great to see Goods do as well as he did at 29 years of age. You know, getting possibly Brownlow votes, first making his debut, and you know, at 29, it's phenomenal. But that's probably something to do with the Bulldogs and how they recruit, and it might come out to the fore at the end of the day, and they're picking a side for the here and now. But I did look at their list during the course of, and they were probably in a rebuilding phase. I won't get in front of myself with them. I think Freo is are going to be a good side this year. There's no doubt about that. Under Line, they've got the ability, they've got the players. If they get their injury list right, they'll be up and about. I just think they'll be too strong for the Bullies, but after seeing what I saw last week, I can see him being in a competitive game.
Dead right, Darren, before we go to the break.
The two most frustrating sides in football for me of the past decade.
Richmond wouldn't be in that?
Sorry?
Richmond wouldn't be in that?
No, because these two sides have actually had chances to win premierships, and they've completely blown it during the premiership windows that have been open to them. Look, I didn't expect the Bulldogs to do what they did last week either, but I'm still erring on the side of the Dockers because I didn't expect the Dockers to do quite what they did either, and they look pretty good, so I'm going to pick the Dockers this week.
Fair enough. We'll go to a break here now. When we come back, we'll go through the rest of the AFL round and also the NEAFL as well. So stay with us on SportzScene.
Life. Life is for living. So live it. Life. Life is for giving. So give it. Giving blood is cool. Needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
If you want the latest and best movies on the big screen, plus a delicious morning tea, all for a very low admission price, then you must come along to the 101 FM monthly movies at station sponsor, the Hyperplex Cinemas Loganholme. Keep listening for details of the next screening and then join us, Logan City's 101 FM.
Hi, Darryl here for Coast Care. Thousands of Australians are working in Coast Care groups to protect our environment, taking action to protect and rehabilitate their local headlands, estuaries and dunes, and keeping waterways clear of garbage. If you'd like to be part of the solution, call Coast Care on 1800 803 772. That's 1800 803 772.
Having a party or barbecue at your house this Saturday night? Make sure you tune in to Saturday Night Party Mix from 7 p.m. on your station 101 FM.
Logan City's 101 FM. FM 1 FM.
You're listening to Saturday SportzScene on the voice of Logan City, 101 FM.
Welcome back to SportzScene here on 101 FM. It's 17 minutes past 9. Here we are at SportzScene, taking you through all the best and greatest issues in the world of sport for the last couple of weeks. Joining me at the desk, Craig Crowley from the AFL Queensland Hall of Fame, Ethan James from the QRL, and Darren Madigan, founding father of SportzScene. Just a quick reminder, each Wednesday between 9:30am and 10am, be listening to Legal Talkback with Steve Caron from our sponsor, Caron Lawyers. He'll answer your questions on most things about the law. Just call 101 FM on 3808 8101. That's 3808 8101. That's every Wednesday from 9:30am until 10am. Time now to jump back into the rest of the AFL round, and arguably the most disappointing team of the first round was the Brisbane Lions, but they're back at home this week, up against the Adelaide Crows at the Gabba, 3:40pm this afternoon. Craig, surely they can't play as poorly as they did last week. They should bounce back, at least to a better performance, you would think.
You'd like to hope so. Look, and after winning the pre-season cup on the NAB Cup, you probably got a lot of these young guys that have probably, as they're bleeding them along, and they've probably got a little bit in front of themselves. Yep. I think that was a good reality check for them. Mind you, it's a big initiation to come up even against any top side, but Adelaide, once again, they're in a position, obviously, I still struggle a bit without that extra forward, but I still think they've got the midfield to sort of match it with Brisbane, and Brisbane's small brigade is quite good. I think the Gabba's not going to hold that much of a fortress to Adelaide. I don't think it does to a lot of side. I don't think Brisbane are one of the sides that continually went up there because it's the home ground advantage, because the standard, the only thing that's probably would have been in their favour is probably the conditions, but obviously, as we know, I think it's going to be about a 24, 25 degree day, so it's actually beautiful for these sort of guys. And look, I still believe Adelaide Crows are a side that can figure pretty significantly in the finals, even though I believe Brisbane can as well. But I just think they're, if they come back to earth a little bit, they can be competitive, but I think Adelaide will probably get over them tonight, I'd say.
Fair call. Darren, how do you see it?
Yeah, I didn't expect Brisbane to play the way they did last week myself. I don't think anybody did, certainly going down by the amount that they did. There's probably only one home ground left in football, and that's probably Subiaco Oval.
Stadium to Geelong?
Sorry?
Geelong? Stadium, that's one. Bit of a fortress.
Yeah, it is a bit of a fortress, although sometimes I wonder if that's more just because Geelong are just so damn good for so long. But I think there's been genuine fear for many years there was genuine fear for teams coming up to take on the Lions at the Gabba, but that's all long gone now, I think. And as I said, we didn't expect the Lions. The Crows went down to Essendon, but yeah, I think the Crows probably, given last week's performance by the Lions, I think the Crows can probably get up this week.
Fair enough. And we go from probably the most disappointing side of the first round to the side that probably put the most smiles on their fans' faces last week. Port Adelaide win last week over the Melbourne Demons. They're hosting the GWS Giants, 5:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Amy Stadium. Thumping win for them to start the season. Can they back it up 2 in a row to start the year?
What's going on? Was that what you were saying last week as well, Craig?
Well, I'm a Melbourne supporter, mate, so
yeah,
I can. I know what's going on.
Other things as well, maybe, I don't know.
I mean, it was just. I mean, look, I don't think anybody who saw that scoreline was just, I was just in shock. I mean, it was just an amazing thing.
54 that win was.
But as I keep getting reminded by people on social media, and that Power are better than a wooden spoon side, which both Craig and I have picked for this season, and they could be right. I mean, anything's possible, and given the performance from last week, I wouldn't be so bold as to say that they're wrong and I'm right. But gee, it was an amazing coming up against the Giants too. I mean, this could be a very interesting match. Gee, Port coming off the back of what they did last week, I'm going to pick them this week.
Well, you'd probably have to,
yeah,
because the GW Giants probably are not at their potential at the moment. They're still growing and they're still learning the caper. But at the end of the day, if you remember correctly, this was probably the end of Matty Primus, this game where GW last year beat Port Adelaide. So that's going to be sitting heavily in their mind. That's why I'm going to go for Port Adelaide. I think the situation with Kenny Hinkley, new coach there, is going to make a lot of difference to the group. So I just think at this stage, Port are going to do it. I think they'll be 2-0.
Fair enough. It's the John McCarthy tribute day, isn't it?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah. Obviously, and it was great to see Kevin Sheedy on the tally during the course of saying they're going to support it 100% and get right behind it. I think they're going to embrace the black armbands as well as the minute silence, which is excellent. Which that is just Kevin Sheedy to a T.
100% right.
It is, isn't it? Yep.
Next game of the round, Essendon up against your mob, Melbourne Demons, mate. 6:40 p.m. Standard Time at the MCG. Can Melbourne bounce back a little bit and show something against Essendon?
Well, both sides had terrific turmoil during the pre-season, didn't they? You know, for different reasons, and Essendon seemed to take the opportunity and run with it and be better and stronger. Melbourne, well, they just went the other way.
Yeah.
I just, and the significant thing about it, what they actually did, and which I was quite happy with, Melbourne recruited some players from other clubs, hoping to get some stability to run with their junior players they've got at the moment. It's a young brigade they have, and they've dropped 2 of them. So I just don't know how it works, how they think, and obviously they're just happy to go run with their young brigade, and if that's what they're going to do, they're going to be in for some thumpings. And they let Ricky Pettard go last year, and he was significant in Richmond's win last night. I don't know what they do over there. It's a bit of a shame, but I think Essendon will take them to the cleaners.
Yeah, got to scoot on, guys. A couple of big games coming up. Geelong versus North Melbourne, Sunday afternoon, 1:10 p.m. at Etihad Stadium, Eastern Standard Time.
The twins.
The brothers. The two Scots brothers. So this is going to be interesting. They should know how each other think. So, look, Geelong, they were terrific last week, and I think they're at Skill Stadium's going to... Is it? No, it's at Etihad, isn't it?
Etihad, yep.
Yeah, sorry. North Melbourne do all right at Etihad, so that's one thing in their favour. A little bit of controversy after last week's game with North Melbourne and the head clash, but I think Geelong, I'll go back on what I said, the young guys are starting to come through, so I didn't think they bled enough players to come through, but I think Geelong might get through this
Fair
one.
enough. Two big games to finish the round. Collingwood up against Carlton, 3:20pm at the MCG. Mick Malthouse returns to take on his old club. This is going to be a big one, isn't it?
This is the biggest rivalry in Australian club sport. Doesn't matter where they are, 17th or 18th, 80,000.
Yeah. The disappointing thing that I've seen this week, though, about it, we got two clubs with great rivalry, and we're talking about coaches.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's the whole passion about it, what it's about. The players should be the ones to be focusing on, and I hope it is during the course of the game, and Collingwood will win.
Right, well, let's talk about the players. You like Collingwood in this one?
Yeah, look, I do. I just... I thought Collingwood are going to be significant in the finals. I think they recruited really well on the off-season, and I think that'll come to the fore in due course, and I think it'll start on the weekend.
Fair enough. Darren, what are you tipping?
I think Collingwood by a considerable margin, and I would believe if Mick Malthouse is a student of the game as we believe him to be, a lot like Sheedy, he would be suitably embarrassed by the events of this week.
Fair enough. The last match of the round, West Coast Eagles up against Hawthorn Hawks, 4:40pm standard time at Patterson Stadium, Sunday Arvo. I'm calling it now, that just will sound hyperbole and weird in the thing, but was Jeff Kennett's calling for Alistair Clarkson's head the best overreaction we're going to see this year? Telling the coach of the team that finished minor premiers and a couple of kicks from winning the grand final last year, he loses his first game, you're gone.
Not good enough.
That's a big overreaction, surely.
Nature of the beast, unfortunately. When you talk controversy, you talk Jeff Kennett, and he just wants to have his say. I think he loves the limelight. At the end of the day, he was great for Hawthorn while they were there, and he actually got a lot of publicity for him.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it, when he was there and when he was involved, he was a huge advocate for Alistair Clarkson, and he was talking about, I think it was 5 to 8 years, as long as a coach should be there. A coach should be there as long as their team's performing. And as far as I'm concerned, Hawthorn are performing. They've been one of the powerhouses in the last 4 or 5 years. So I don't see the problem. As you said, they were a couple of kicks from being premiers. You didn't hear him say this when they won the grand final when they shouldn't have. So at the end of the day, that's just Jeff Kennedy in the tee. He got some limelight. He's probably happy with it.
That's it. Well, on the game itself, guys, West Coast Hawthorn, two very good footy teams. It's going to be a good game of football, this one.
It's going to be a beauty, isn't it? It's at the moment. I mean, the loss of Lacroix early in the season is big, mind you. They haven't had him for a year, so it's probably they've learnt to play without him up that end of the field. He used to be worth at least 3 or 4 goals a match, but at the moment, I still like Hawthorn. I mean, they're such a good side. And if Buddy turns one on, and he hasn't done it yet, even in pre-season, and if he manages to do it, anything, they're capable of kicking a big score.
That's it. A couple of big games coming up Sunday afternoon. We'll move now to the NEAFL. We're going to run out of time here, Craig. First up, Sydney Swans versus the Gold Coast Suns. It's 10:05 a.m. At the SCG. Very early start for a game of football, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Too early, but anyway.
Juniors.
These guys are professionals. They're all playing for their livelihood. They'll get up at any time to play a game of footy. So it's really what they want to present at the day. We talk about this on a regular basis of what sort of team they put up. If Sydney are fair dinkum, you'd probably suggest they would be too strong.
Fair enough. Brisbane Lions up against the UWS Giants, 11 a.m. Cooperoo.
Once again, I think you'll find that in the travel situation, the Lions, obviously the reigning premiers, they're going to be ultra competitive again this year, and if they go along with the same mental attitude, I think they'll beat the...
Craig, is there any reason they're not playing at Yeronga?
Don't know. Cooperoo is their main home ground.
Yeah, I just thought headquarters had moved, that's all.
Yeah, Yeronga is the NEAFL headquarters.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough. Ainsley up against Morningside, 11:45 a.m. at Ainsley.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Once again, Morningside they've gone through a rebuilding situation. I know we hear it constantly, but they've got a lot of good juniors. Ainsley, you just don't know on the crossover conference what the sides are going to be like. Ainsley have always been strong and competitive. It's going to be a tight game. You'd probably go for Ainsley in this one.
That's it. NT Thunder host Mount Gravatt, 7 p.m. tonight, TIO Stadium. The Thunder still searching for their first win of the season. They're 0-2.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Look, I don't think you'll see it happen very often in the way of Thunder being beaten at TIO Stadium again. And Mount Gravatt are a little bit dismantled during the pre-season. They're sort of bringing some kids through because they've had retirees and players go. So I just think you'll find that the Thunder will be too strong in this one.
That's it. The final match of the round, mate. Your Southport Sharks travelling to Broadbeach tomorrow afternoon, 1:30 p.m. How's this one going to go down?
It's a beauty.
Well, go on, Darren, have a go.
I think this is a beauty. Broadbeach and Southport up against one another, and Broadbeach have a bit of form at the moment too. So I'd love to be down there watching this one. I'll give you the drum. I still think your boys can get up there, don't you think?
Oh, look, our performances so far, we've played two relatively talented sides, and we've done all right. Broadbeach went to TIO Stadium and beat the Thunder up there, which I don't think has been done before. So, look, they're up and about. And look, they've got new facilities that are all underway, so they're waiting for a big game. The ground's in perfect condition, and once again, they've got some players that have come up and from interstate as well as developing their junior football. So they're going in the right direction, which is tremendous. And we're expecting a very good hit out. And once again, it's a local derby. It's going to be on. So we're looking forward to a good win, hopefully.
The Aspley, Redlands and Labrador all get the bye. Quick look at results from last week. Labrador, Queanbeyan. It was Queanbeyan getting up 98-81. Aspley getting up 128-90 over the NT Thunder. Brisbane Lions gave it to Morningside 144-57. Gold Coast Suns 158 over Mount Gravatt 32. And your Southport Sharks 108-40 there. That wraps up all the Aussie rules discussion for this week. We've got to go to a break now. When we come back, we'll get Lee Hannescheck on the phone to talk all things motorsport. Stay with us here on 101 FM.
Do you have a street light that's not functioning correctly outside your property? Perhaps you've noticed a floodlight over a zebra crossing that's not operating. Well, Energex would like you to report it to them by calling 13 12 53 or completing an online form for faulty streetlights on their website at energex.com.au. Remember also that the council has to pay the running cost of all the streetlights, whether they're working or not. So let's get the most for our rateable dollar by reporting the streetlights not functioning to Energex on 13 12 53 or on their website energex.com.au.
Four-wheel driving on Fraser Island can be dangerous. Take sand driving seriously. Don't let your trip turn to tragedy. Slow down, stick to the speed limit. In good conditions, 80 kilometres an hour on the beach and 30 on inland tracks. Slower is safer. Seatbelts save lives. Wear them, it's the law. Police patrol the beach anytime. Make your visit to Fraser fun, not fatal.
Do you have a street light that's not functioning correctly outside your property? Perhaps you've noticed a floodlight over a zebra crossing that's not operating. Well, Energex would like you to report it to them by calling 13 12 53 or completing an online form for faulty streetlights on their website at energex.com.au. Remember also that the council has to pay the running cost of all the streetlights, whether they're working or not. So let's get the most for our rateable dollar by reporting the streetlights not functioning to Energex on 13 12 53 or on their website energex.com.au.
If you want to know what's happening on the roads, make sure you tune into 101 FM Monday to Friday during breakfast and drive for the latest traffic updates, presented by your station sponsor, Yellow Cabs.
Logan City's 101 FM. 1 FM.
Now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 27 minutes to 10. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, Darren Madigan, all with you. And joining us on the line to talk motorsport with us is Mr. Lee Hannescheck. Lee, welcome to the show again.
Thanks, Kev. Great to be with you guys.
Great to be with you again, mate. What are you up to at the moment this weekend? I know last weekend, we'll talk about it in a second, the National Karting Championships there, but what are you up to at the moment?
Last weekend was, as I said, down in Monardo. This weekend I'm in Sydney as of tomorrow, so I've got to get a few things done down around home and get things in order before I head back down for another day down there. So just had to sort a few things out in domestic wise.
All good. So, all right, tell us all about the national champs last week, mate.
National championships was at Monarto, as I mentioned in the opening. 9 categories are up for grabs, and it was David Serra who won at 2 categories to win his 14th overall national championship. So in his career, so a great achievement for David. He now sits second on the all-time winners list in Australian karting behind John Pizarro. David, who sort of had a bit of a dabble in Formula Ford last year, is now sort of back racing on a semi-full-time basis in karting. He won both the club and heavy and the leopard light categories. But the leopard heavy category was won by a Brisbane driver of Chris Walton, who also races in V8 Utes. Has been trying for many, many years to win an Australian karting championship. There's lots of seconds, lots of thirds, but never broke through for the victory. And this year he's finally done it. It's Chris from Redcliffe. So a great effort for him. Other winners include Joshua Denton from Adelaide, who was a third-generation champion, his first family to have won the championship through 3 generations. His grandfather won it in 1964, his father won a championship in 1992, and now he's won it in 2013. So a great achievement for the Denton family.
That's it, mate. All right, time now. We move now with the V8s. They're in Tasmania this weekend. Familiar face at the top of the practice sheets. It's Craig Lowndes.
Surprise, surprise. Triple Eight are on top of their game, and Craig Lowndes sets the pace during practice yesterday. Lowndes is only 1 win away from moving to the all-time, winner of the Australian Touring Car V8 Supercar history, and he could do that this weekend and pass Mark Scaife for that right. And if he continues this form he's got at the moment, he'll certainly be on track. And Lowndes was fastest in yesterday's practice, narrowly ahead of his Red Bull Racing Australia teammate Jamie Whincup. Third fastest yesterday was Fabian Coulthard, who was dominant at the Grand Prix. Young Scott McLaughlin, the Gold Coast domiciled Kiwi, now living in Melbourne. Take him whichever way you want to, but we'll call him a Gold Coaster for now. Spent a lot of his past few years on the coast. He was 4th fastest. James Courtney was 5th. Jason Bright. Mark Winterborn was the only Ford inside the top 10, and he was in 7th place yesterday. So, Fords have got a bit of work to do if they're going to try and catch the flying Holdens, you could say.
Absolutely. Darren, how are you seeing this one going down this weekend?
It's a tough track. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny lap in terms of the amount of time, but with a famous hairpin going into this long right-hand curve, I can't bring myself to call it a straight. And, years ago when I was a kid growing up, we used to love watching bikes on it. And the V8s have continued to race there, but you've got to have great mechanical grip coming out of a hard break into that hairpin, and you've got to be able to get your power to the ground coming out of there. Now, the word I've heard is that the Nissans are having a lot of trouble doing that. How have they gone, Lee?
The Nissans, they're actually struggling a bit. They're down in Leste's final practice. Todd Kelly was 19th, and Rick was 22nd. James Moffat-Mockrusso 25th, 26th. The best of the newbies, we'll call them. Of the Mercedes and Nissan guys was Lee Holdsworth in 15th. Now, I actually spoke with Tim Slade during the week, and he openly said that the fact of the matter is they're not up to game at the moment at Erebus Motorsport. They're trying the best they can as they do, but they're definitely not up to game, and they've got to try and get back up to speed. It will take some time, but they've just got to keep telling themselves that we're on a new program. Give it time.
Yeah.
and they're under no illusions of where they're heading.
Yeah, look, I mean, you just got to hand it to Craig Lowndes. He just keeps going. I mean, he's not as old as people think he is, but he just said he's been around for so long that you tend to think that he is. But
not that old.
No, but about to knock off Scafie's record is a great achievement, and I guess it's another thing we could sit there and say, poor bugger. I mean, he was better than that, and he probably should have had a bit more of a career overseas. But hey, he's been able to make a living back here in Australia and become a virtual legend of the sport in this country. But Symmons Plains, as I said before, it's a tough track in terms of the stop-start nature. But as we do every year, watch for the hairpin, see who manages to get through there without get crashing, and whoever can put their power to the ground out of that hairpin, that's where it really counts for your lap.
Well, I think also, Darren, this weekend you're going to have they've gone with it's almost like a 2020 format, you could just call it. It's V8 Supercars answer to try and create some racing, create some excitement with basically 2 races separated each day by a 15-minute break. The second race will start from a double file restart. It's going to be interesting.
Double file into the hairpin.
Mine is, they can race as hard as they can on today and tomorrow.
Yep.
These cars have got to be on the boat from Tasmania to Melbourne tomorrow night, which is Monday night, then packed in containers and sent to New Zealand on Tuesday. So there is no time for these crew to have a major incident and have the cars repaired, let alone have the spares to be repaired, because they've all just finished building new cars.
Yeah.
They haven't got the spares yet. They may have just got enough, but it's going to be very interesting. Back-to-back events, and 2 overseas events, you could call them. There's one's in Tasmania, one's in New Zealand. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
It definitely will be, mate. Something to watch over the next couple of weeks. Yeah. Also, something interesting overnight in the NASCARs. Marcus Ambrose, a good result.
Yes, Marcus had a great result overnight, qualifying second at Martinsville. Did Marcus? So, it was a great result for him. He was 7/1000ths out of fastest qualifier in Jimmy Johnson, who took pole position. He was the 9th car out on the track, and 19.25 seconds around the flat half mile. So at Martinsville, get your elbows up, get the panels half straight before you go back out there and kick it off. So the STP Gas Booster 500. I just love the NASCAR names that they come up with races. All these different sponsors, just throw it out there.
I'm going to watch it.
It's the STP Gas Booster 500. So
it's amazing the difference between the tracks too, because you can make a direct comparison to Bristol 2 races ago, and this track at Martinsville, it's a half-mile oval, as Lee's pointed out, very little banking. It holds about 60,000 people, yet we go back 2 races, extreme banking, a real bull ring, 160,000 people, yet still a half-mile oval. It's amazing the different tracks these guys race on around the place. It really is.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's just an unbelievable thought to see Bristol in its element, and then you go to Martinsville, which has the same length of track, but just a completely different race circuit. Just nothing like Bristol. So, Marcus, he had a great start to the year. Hopefully, this can be the kickstart he needs to get his year back on track.
Dead right. Darren, before we finish up the motorsport segment, a couple more topics you wanted to touch on. MotoGP, I know, is one of them. Yeah,
just as far as MotoGP, I'm just bringing it up at the moment. Free practice 3 at the moment. Marc Marquez currently leading. This is the opening race of the season in Qatar at the Losail track. It's under lights. They look fantastic. You'll see it about 5 a.m. I think about our time on Monday morning. Just double check the guides on that one. Jorge Lorenzo coming in second at the moment. Valentino Rossi sitting in fourth. The only Australian in the lineup, just having a look there, is Brian Staring, and he's more a privateer, I think, than anything else, racing a Honda, and he's currently 21st at the moment. So that's the situation with MotoGP class. Also, interesting Malaysian GP recently. You ever wondered how quickly these guys can change tyres? Mark Webber was clocked at 2.05 seconds. These guys are going to crack 2 seconds in the next couple of races, I reckon. It's going insane.
Yeah, of course. His crew and his team changed 4 tyres in 2.1 seconds or whatever it was. Mark Webber just sat there and waited for him to finish.
Indeed they did. Indeed they did. Also, the engine makers are talking about getting an extra test for Formula 1 because if you may not be aware, we go to a new formula in 2014 in the V6 turbo, and at the moment they're worried. It doesn't sound good. In fact, it's been described by Ron Walker and Bernie Ecclestone as sounding like a lawnmower engine. So they've got a bit to work to do on this engine at the moment before they get there. They're talking about getting an extra test. It looks like it will be granted for January next year for Formula 1 as well. So fingers crossed. And also IndyCar this weekend, we are at Barber Motorsport Park, and currently at the moment the driver standings after the first race in St Petersburg is James Hinchcliffe, who also does the best Kimi Räikkönen impression going around along with Sebastian Vettel. Sort of throw that in. And Helio Castroneves and Marco Andretti at the moment. Scotty Dixon is 5th in the standings and Will Power 15th.
That's it, guys. We're out of time there, but Lee, thank you very much for being with us again this morning.
Thanks, guys.
No worries, mate. We'll catch you next week. We'll go to a break now. When we come back, we've got to go through some netball and we'll discuss social media in sport and the effect it's having, a particular case study on the Josh Dugan incident from last week. So stay with us on SportzScene.
Hi, this is Eric Banner, patron of the Australian Childhood Foundation. There were over 300,000 reports of children being abused in Australia last year alone. It's a problem we have to face up to. Child abusers are counting on you to do nothing, but there is something you can do. By going to stopchildabusenow.com.au, you can find out how we can help protect our children. So please, stop doing nothing.
Veterans, their partners and war widows may be eligible to receive assistance from the Department of Veteran Affairs for one-on-one exercise conditioning and or rehabilitation programs with a doctor's referral to an exercise physiologist. Veterans who hold gold or white BVA pension cards and who reside in the Logan City area are encouraged to telephone Rebecca on 0437 542 095 for more information.
If you want the latest and best movies on the big screen, plus a delicious morning tea, all for a very low admission price, then you must come along to the 101 FM monthly movies at station sponsor, the Hyperplex Cinemas Logan Home. Keep listening for details of the next screening and then join us, Logan City's 101 FM.
Logan City's 101 FM. FM 1 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on your station 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 14 minutes to 10. The next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Just a reminder, each Wednesday between 9:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. I'll be listening to Legal Talkback with Steve Caron from our sponsor, Caron Lawyers. He'll answer your questions on most things about the law. Just call 101 FM on 3808-8101. That's 3808-8101. That's every Wednesday from 9:30 till 10 a.m. Darren, now it's time to talk some netball. We'll move now on to the ANZ Championship, the third round. We'll start up the Southern Steel up against the Adelaide Thunderbirds.
Southern Steel up against the Adelaide Thunderbirds. Yeah, Southern Steel coming off a huge win last week, 75-56 over the Tactics. Janelle Fowler scored 65 goals, broke the single game record at 92% scoring rate. I think they might just get up over the Thunderbirds in Dunedin, in chilly Dunedin. West Coast Fever at home to the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic. Look, as much as I love Norma Plummer and that, Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic has legends in their team, including Irene Van Dyke, and I think that in the longest road trip in world sport, as the soccer guys have to do as well, I think they'll get up there. The New Zealanders will get up. Northern Mystics at home to the Queensland Firebirds. Queensland Firebirds dealing with a bit of controversy this week. The New Zealanders having a bit of a whinge on the way Laura Geitz was playing during, really... It's netball, get over it. And I think the Firebirds can get up over the Mystics over there in Auckland. Central Pulse at home to the New South Wales Swifts in Wellington. I'm going to pick the Swifts there this week. And the Melbourne Vixens at home to the Canterbury Tactics. Vixens just looking, I think, too good on that front. Current ladder at the moment, Magic, Vixens, Firebirds, Fever make up your 4. And the rest of the comp, Steel, Thunderbirds, Swifts, Pulse, Tactics, and the Mystics lead up the Reds. Current goal scorers at the moment, your 3 leaders at the moment are, as you would expect, the new girl Fowler from Jamaica, who's breaking records on 109. Romelda Aiken with 87 goals for the Firebirds, and the legend herself, the greatest shooter in history, Irene Van Dyke, 77 goals. So that's basically what's happening in the ANZ Championship at the moment. As far as local netball is concerned, there is a under 17s and under 19s national championships being held in Darwin starting this weekend as we speak, and our Queensland girls are off for that. The scorelines which we didn't have from last week's games were Suncoast Lynx 37 went down to the Cougars by 1 goal, and the Brisbane West Lions went down to the Tigers 42-35, and the Golden South Jags 63 got up over the Logan Wildcats 37. There won't be any more games until a week or so's time, the first game being on the 17th of April, which will be the Cougars up against the EDS, the Elite Development Squad, at the Logan Metro Indoor Sports Centre. So at the moment, the Queensland Champions Cup sits at the Tigers, and Cougars sitting up the top of the ladder. Suncoast Lynx, Golden South Jaguars 4th, McDonald Steelcats from Townsville 5th, and the Brisbane West Lions, the EDS, and the Logan Wildcats bringing up the wooden spoon position at the moment.
That's it. Thanks heaps for bringing us up to date, Darren. Now it's time to move on. We've got 10 minutes left in the show here on SportzScene. Plenty of time for us to sink our teeth into this issue. Social media and sport, it's reared its head again. We see it plenty of times. But this week, just last weekend, Josh Dugan, it looks like he was on the verge of a deal with the Brisbane Bronco. That's all gone south now because of what has happened. I'll explain it out. I'll map out what happened. He posted a photo on Instagram. For those who don't know Instagram, it's very similar to Twitter, except you post photos and people follow you. So basically, anybody can follow Josh Dugan, and then every time if he posts a photo, it'll come up on your news feed. You can comment, you can like it, all the stuff like that. So that's how it goes. So he posted a photo on his Instagram account. Ever since he left the Raiders, he's been getting abuse from Raiders fans left, right, and centre from it on all his social media stuff. What happens next? Josh Dugan's mum jumps onto her account. She jumps in, starts sticking up for her son on Instagram. She tells this one guy in particular that obviously he needs a hug. This is all mature stuff, by the way. It's all good. That guy responds and said, obviously you were molested as a child. Josh saw that and flipped out. He unloaded on this guy paragraphs of abuse. That exchange, the media got hold of it. It all went public, and the Broncos pulled his deal. Obviously, bad PR relations to keep, that sort of situation. Now, I have a few feelings on this one. First of all, Dugan, he did the wrong thing to bite back in the way trolls, as they're known, the people who do this stuff. They're everywhere with it, and they know this. But also, on a human level, I don't think he's an awful person because he reacted badly to someone having a go at his mum. Yeah. I think it's been played up a little bit too much, the fact that Dugan is this awful person when, certainly I think you can say that his judgment was poor and that he reacted badly, but I don't think he's an awful person because he went into bat for his mum on Instagram against some random troll who's having a go at it. But it just brings up so many issues with this here, with the social media aspect, with the constant access the fans have. They can just they can sit at their keyboard and just pick away at some player they don't like all the time. Eventually it snaps, and it's cost Dugan a $2 million contract. So what are our initial thoughts on this situation, guys? What are our initial thoughts?
My initial thought would have been, in this period of time where Josh Dugan is
fragile?
Very, very fragile. A great word. And also, he still wants to play footy. Mm-hmm. He should have just stayed off all media product until anything had been signed. He'd made his decision in football. It sounds to me to a certain extent, we do take counselling to probably too far at times, but he needed someone with a guiding hand to tell him what to do. Now, we spoke about it off air. Probably if the manager is at fault here because he's not giving him enough support in the way of telling him what he should be doing and what he shouldn't do. Like, there's gonna be these trolls out there that are gonna give you attitude, and that's part and parcel of supporters. Supporters that do it. Now, whether it's on our phones, whether it's at the game, whatever the case may be, there is gonna be all this stuff that happens, and you're gonna be, as a profile person, in the prime shooting line, aren't you? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, his manager or himself should have said, hey, I'm going to just stay off this for a while, turn his phone off, get another number, and just change any way he can be attacked. That way he settles it down. Like you said, he's lost a lucrative deal with the Broncos possibly, and that's really because his emotions are running high.
Yeah.
And that's purely and simply that is. He reacted as I probably would too if anyone's having a go at me. But the thing is, I'm not playing for $2 million. I'm not looking about having a contract in the top competition. I'm doing what I'm doing. So he is accessible to this sort of stuff. His manager and himself should have sort of gone into shutdown mode and not let him be accessible to this and let it all die down and then come back into it later.
He's a 22-year-old guy. A 22-year-old people at this day and age, like, social media is a massive part of their lives. I know. I agree with you. I agree totally with your point that it should have been shut down like that. But
over a month?
I agree. I agree. But Ethan, I'll go to you with this one. As you know, for the young people navigating the landscape with the social media, for a guy who, to his mind, I'm just out there for my friends. Like, it's different. It is different for him because he's famous. He is more of a target, and he needs to be more conscious of what he puts out there. How do young players, when the fame comes to them and something like this happens, how do young players steer clear of trouble on social media?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and I'm on a fair few of the social media networks, obviously not to the level of Josh Dugan, and no one really abuses me because no one really knows who I am. But
not yet, mate.
Not yet. We'll get there one.
Soon.
Thanks, guys. But in terms of people throwing abuse at you, I actually heard Willie Mason speak about it.
This is a good point.
Earlier in the week, he said as soon as someone throws something negative at him, he'll probably reply back with a witty, maybe funny or sarcastic response, and then just click the block button. And at that point, it ends because that person can't, respond back to him, and it doesn't escalate into something that we saw Josh Dugan get involved.
The thing with that is that one can't do it, but the dozens, tens, the hundreds, or the others all can. At the point there is a point where it breaks, and the difference with Josh Dugan and Willie Mason. Willie Mason is a 32-year-old guy who has been through plenty of troubles in his past before and has learned a lot. Josh Dugan, at 22 years old, has still got to learn all these lessons. I thought it was a really good interview. Actually, I saw that one. It was on NRL 360 during the week. Him and Cameron Smith, both of them. You could just see the difference 10 years of maturity makes in this decision making, which to me says, to the point you were making, Craig, somebody has to be looking out for these guys in this situation. And managers, I think, is the big one.
Manager is, but even if a Willie Mason type person becomes a mentor to him and just goes, hey, look, they're just trying to dig up some stuff on you. Forget about it. Move on. Don't take it to heart. They're just trying to get you going. And that's obviously happened to Willie, and people would think, oh, well, if that's happened to Willie, I can take that on. But I'll take it. But he hasn't had that mentor. He hasn't had someone.
That's it.
And it's probably the best person, not a mentor, is probably a player liaisons officer.
Yeah.
Which a lot of clubs do. They should be getting to it. But because he's out of contract or between clubs, he hasn't got a player. There's no support base for him. So if he was with the Broncos or was with the Raiders, someone would have intervened. Someone would have been there and pushed him or showed him the right areas to go to. But there's no one there because he's between clubs.
Darren, what are your thoughts on it?
He's been hung out to dry, by one of the clubs. It's, as you said before, he's a young man. These kids don't know what to do anymore. There was a time when they could go to their job during the day and play football, go to training that night, and it wasn't that long ago that was still happening. All of a sudden now, you can literally take a photo of someone having lunch with a young lady at the local cafe, post it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and all of a sudden there's a story going around, marriage breaking up, blah, 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 because this guy's out with some girl. And it's just a nothing cup of coffee with somebody, probably someone from the club.
Could be a relative.
Yeah, exactly, down the road. It's that simple, and it can be done within a minute. So, this is the first generation that's had to deal with that. The other question I've got is, where is his manager? What's going on?
It's a good question. It's the first question I asked with it. Like, with somebody going through this situation, the manager, I thought, had to be looking out for him there. Like, he doesn't have a club at the moment to guide him through this stuff. Where is the manager? I think one of the big things with this social media that players of the past never had to deal with, 24 hours a day now, the fans have access to them in that sense. There is no escape. There is no escape from the fame and the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, to me, I think the social media is there. I don't think sporting community and the community in general have really caught up to exactly what it is and exactly how to handle it.
Kev, can I also say too, I think maybe it's time for both the NRL, because we're seeing it now with Liam Jarrah, and also the NRL, to maybe look at having someone at league level, not aligned with any club, when you get some of these players that are out there that are not aligned to any clubs at present, but they're in big trouble, to have someone to be able to step in and say, hey, this is what you need to do, we're going to help you.
I'd say, with the Liam Jarrah situation, with the Indigenous side of it, I think there would be someone there for that. But we're not doing it with Josh Dugan. There's no one there for him because he's not Indigenous or he's not an ethnic race or anything like that or multicultural. So the situation, he sort of stands alone. We've got to look after our own as well.
Yeah. Fair enough. Look, we're out of time there. Just the last word on that one, I think, as much as I think Josh Dugan did the wrong thing in responding like that, I think, again, like we said before, on a human level, I don't think he's an awful person because he went after a troll who had a go at his mum. I think a little bit unfair in that reaction. He certainly reacted the wrong way, didn't have the guidance perhaps, but I think we've got to put it in perspective a little bit. He's a young guy who snapped. Anyway, we're out of time here on Sports Scene. Thank you very much for being with us, Craig, Ethan, Darren. We'll be back same time, same place next week on 101 FM. Guys, good luck this weekend. Craig on Sunday. Ethan, you got the weekend off. No games this week to cover.
Yeah, the Tigers are up in Mackay, so I'm
time off.
Yeah,
that's it. Enjoy it. You guys enjoy that at home too. We'll be back next week.